Yeah, let's come to the next panel, which will be moderated by my colleague Clara, Managing Director of ICT Haumann-Hauser. I know Clara enjoys bringing interesting people on a table, discussing and seeing things from new perspectives. She invited Irit from the Weizmann Institute in Israel and Ilona from the Commercialization Reactor in Latvia. Both have significant output of spin-offs, but maybe the settings and environments differ. So let's discuss about boosters and challenges. The stage is yours, Clara.
Thank you very much, Yasmin and Dejan, especially for this already super exciting morning, and a good afternoon as well from my side. As Yasmin already stated, with the IACT, we support early stage deep tech founders, and a lot of our alumni are from international backgrounds. And with that, we gain some experiences that tech transfer is really different, especially at early stages on an international level. And today, I'm really honored to welcome today's panelists, Irit Sagi who is the Vice President of the Tech Transfer Office at the Weizmann Institute, JEDA, as well as Ilona Gulchak, who is the chairperson of the board from the Commercialization Reactor in Latvia. And today it's really about discussing the boosters and challenges of the tech transfer in science-based entrepreneurship. And based on latest publications, but as well as undermined from our experiences, there are several main challenges regarding the academic tech transfer. And today's discussion, we would like to build on kind of two arguments. One argument is like around this topic of bureaucracy. We have already heard it quite some time now in the panels beforehand, like establishing structures, processes, standards. What standards and processes do our panelists have? And the second argument we are going to discuss is like this topic of transformation of roles, like from scientists to entrepreneur. Is it really a transformation? Is it necessary? What is it about? And with these two arguments, I would like to kick it off. But beforehand, I would like to invite both Ilona and Irit to shortly introduce yourself as well as what your organizations are doing. And maybe Ilona, may I start with you?
Yes, thank you, Clara, and hello, everyone. Really honored to be here. I represent Commercialization Reactor, which is a science commercialization platform. Although we are based in Riga in Latvia, but we work internationally, and our focus is the creation of deep tech startups. And in doing this, we are bringing together non-entrepreneurial scientists with non-tech entrepreneurs with the goal to create future deep tech startups. On this way, we also engage different types of stakeholders who enable this deep tech startup creation, and we provide support services to these teams and further startups, acceleration services, and we also have started investing into them. We are in the market since 2009. Over the course of these years, we have enabled the creation of more than 130 teams. Currently, there are more than 50 startups still on the market at different stages of their development. And we are going into different new countries to start working with different universities and expanding our presence in not only in the Baltics, but in other European countries in order to help universities, the TTOs, to start spin-offs, and as we are focusing on non-entrepreneurial scientists who don't want to be entrepreneurs and who want to stay in their universities, but still to become co-founders of their own startups. So we're kind of helping the TTOs to bring new prospects to their universities. Yeah, so that's the basic facts about the Commercialization Reactor.
Thank you, Ilona. I think it's really exciting that you kind of leverage the possibilities on tech transfer. So from bringing in more people to the scientists, like entrepreneurial-minded people. So I'm curious about exploring this one deeper. Irit, may I hand over to you for a short introduction?
Yes, so thank you so much for the invitation. I'm happy to be here. So I'll actually just mention right along the introduction of Ilona, that I belong to the scientists who wants to stay in the academia. So I'm a working scientist. I'm a professor at the Weizmann Institute. We are located in Israel. In my capacity now, I'm the Vice President of Technology Transfer, which is part of the management of the Weizmann Institute. But also I'm the chair of the board of YEDA. This is the technology transfer office or company we have here on site that is responsible solely to commercialize all the intellectual property which is patented. I think YEDA, most of you maybe were exposed to this detail, but this is the first technology transfer office in Israel, and this is the second in the world. Very successful TTO at the Weizmann that managed to commercialize 7 blockbusters. Technologies, mostly drugs for inflammatory diseases and cancer. So in the last 2 years, we also find the need to refresh the model of innovation and maybe team up with operations like the one that Ilona is running, and I will be happy to tell you more about it as this discussion will advance.
Thank you very much, Irit. Already really curious on how you or YEDA managed to become that successful. And I'm already asking my next question to you, Irit. YEDA, it means knowledge in Hebrew. You already said it's like the second tech transfer office worldwide. And I think a super interesting fact is that it's generated the highest income per researcher compared to any other TTO. And I think that the fact that you have generated more than $37 billion per year only in 2019 with sales of products and intellectual property is massive. And that's something which is really a benchmark to accomplish. And so we are really curious, what are your thoughts on structures and processes? Could you briefly state how it works at YEDA or at Weizmann, and maybe lead us through as well a little bit? So if I'm a researcher at Weizmann, I'm coming up with a groundbreaking idea. How does it work? How long does it take me? Where do I go to?
Okay, so we have our own philosophy for the success of transferring technologies at the Weizmann, and we want to think that the key ingredient are the scientists themselves and the freedom to research and base their activities only on curiosity-driven science. So we at the Weizmann are very, I would say, almost religious about maintaining our institute free of any industrial operation inside the campus. We are supporting only and mostly basic research projects, and nobody, including the management, interferes with the topics and the freedom to research any topic that a scientist wish. The recruitment to the Weizmann is more like a cherry picking. We pick PIs based on their merit and their scientific excellency, and not even based on a topic. So we think that this freedom to research and keeping the mind widely open and interacting with other scientists from 5 different faculties here at the Weizmann is actually the key to our success, because this produces superb science, which is based on real scientific, I think, merit and known mechanisms. And this, in many cases, maybe Ilona can elaborate on this, is key for successful technology transfer and for industry. Now, to your question for the direct answer, if a scientist have an idea today at the Weizmann, how can he translate it to technology? So now at the Weizmann, we establish another unit. It's called Bina. Bina in Hebrew is wisdom, and Yeda in Hebrew is knowledge. So we have wisdom and knowledge, wisdom prior to knowledge maybe. And in Bina, we encourage our scientists to approach the team in Bina with any idea that may have some practical horizons or translational horizons that they think, or even they are not sure. So Bina actually give you the first notion or evaluation of a very premature idea. Plus, we also support with the funding that aim to generate some kind of proof of concept to explore these very early stage ideas. And the last very important thing in Bina is that we consult with the industry. What are the unmet needs? Who can mentor these scientists? We usually go to our alumni, the Weizmann graduates. And by this, we enlarge our community and discussions around, science for the benefit of humanities. Because I think for us scientists, mostly operating in the basic research domain, the economic part is less important than our willing and desire to influence humanity, or maybe produce or translate the knowledge that we produce for the benefit of humanity. This is really the real driving force behind us. And once you approach the scientists from this direction, then it's very much easier to, I would say, to engage most of them. So a scientist at the Weizmann are welcome to approach Bina, or Yeda, once they think that their discovery maturated for to protect the intellectual property on it. Since then, if they have a patent, or they send an application for patenting through Yeda, which is an outside company to the Weizmann, then Yeda is automatically licensed this technology to the company and start to commercialize it in the usual, strategy. So we have a patent, we have in Yeda, we have business development department, legal office, and through mostly, I think, the usual mechanisms, we attract companies, entrepreneurs, VCs to develop the technologies. One more thing I'd like to add, we never give technologies, or we never transfer technologies to a hands that we are not fully convinced that they are able to safely and enthusiastically even develop the technology, because the last thing we want is to shelve our patents in companies' shelves, or in VCs' shelves.
Quickly to add on, I really think this last comment is really crucial, like giving the patent to a team who's really responsible. Like, how do you make sure that's possible? Is it like, do you get to know the team beforehand? Do you how does it look like?
So first of all, we are small institutes. We are only about 280 principal investigators. We are heading our groups, our students, and we know each other very well. We often sit in each other's seminars, lectures. We review thesis. We follow as examiners, each other's students. So we're pretty much familiar with the communities, with the type of research that is going on. And through our partners in the industry and in the VCs, we and our scientific colleagues, we often evaluate through this very, I would say, multifaceted due diligence that we are doing on the technology. So the short answer is really knowing the scientists and the science.
Thank you, Irit. Ilona, may I hand over to you? Maybe you want comment as well, but I have as well a question building up on that. The CEO of JEDA was as well stating that the shelf life of a patent is a ticking clock, so time is of essence, and especially when it's about like going to market, and we know deep tech companies take a long time until go to the market, but especially at the very beginning, timing is everything. Do you want to share a little bit your thoughts on this topic?
Yes, sure. First of all, I think a few comments regarding what Berit has mentioned. I think it's an interesting information to see how it is all built from within. Yeah, because we are kind of an external partner for the university, for the university's TTO, and we see kind of the face of it, and we work with the results of what they have produced internally. So first of all, I do agree that science is the key to start everything off, but it is really important to engage different types of players into the game. Otherwise, the process will stay internally. So what we see from our experience, that it is really important that the university and the TTO is focused on the commercialization of the research of their scientists. And for that, they should have certain policies and procedures in place. And most of all, they also should have certain KPIs for doing that. And as you have, Clara, mentioned patenting, sometimes patenting is considered as a KPI for success. But in terms of commercialization, it's not necessarily so, because sometimes it's better not to patent, and it may also raise some conflict, internal ones for the scientists, because as part of their grants, they might be obliged to patent their research results, and they want to publish, as this is kind of considered their success, which is true. But for the commercialization, it is sometimes more beneficial to keep everything a secret and to transfer this knowledge into the new entity that is being created. And maybe a patent could be made later on when the technology is developed at a certain level, when it is accepted at certain industry. It is important to consider certain points when you approach the commercialization, the level of the development of the technology, and also the willingness of the scientists to participate further in the commercialization. Usually, the TRL that we start working with is somewhat 3 to 4, which is kind of a lab prototype. And obviously, it can be patented, but obviously it is not ready for application in certain industry. And in order to develop this technology further, it really needs huge entrepreneurial efforts. And here comes the question whether this scientist who has invented something is ready to become an entrepreneur and go through this so-called valley of death from the TRL 5, 6 up to 7, and to bring into play completely different skills as opposed to what they have in their research field, and compete with other similar entrepreneurs of an entrepreneurial background. And that's really something that all of the players need to consider. That's important for the TTOs within the university to understand what are their capacities, and also for the scientists, what are their motivations? Do they want to stay within the lab and to do further research, or they want to go out of the lab and compete with real life entrepreneurs? So these are two aspects.
Ilona, you have a special setup in matchmaking entrepreneurs as well. So you're bringing in scientists and entrepreneurial like-minded people. Anything you want to share from that experience as well?
Definitely. First of all, it really takes time. First of all, when, let's say, a scientist, a researcher acknowledge that he doesn't want to be an entrepreneur and he wants to have a co-founder, there is a perception that you might hire one, but it doesn't usually work. Because you need to have a partner who actually goes with you that way and brings this business up together with you. That's really important. And the motivation of this co-founder should be similar to the motivation of this researcher. So they should both become co-founders in the entity, but each of them has different roles, and the roles are built upon the capabilities of each of the players. So researcher is responsible for further developing this technology, and entrepreneurs brings in the entrepreneurial skills, the ambition, the vision of the business development. And another important aspect is that the application of any particular technology, maybe probably apart from pharma, can be found in many industries. And let's say a scientist might have a vision to apply technology, let's say in the energy sector, but an entrepreneur comes and says, well, I see there is another problem in another industry, and that would be the lowest hanging fruit, and we can start with that. Sometimes a technological pivot can be very early developing a startup. So I can actually speak a lot about this, but as I started with that it takes time, the team building is really crucial. And when we match these teams at the so-called ignition event, we kind of ignite these teams. It really takes them several months to actually glue together, to really understand that they want to form a company and that they want to go this way together. So that's really important. And of course, at later stages, when they have a business hypothesis, when they have a business idea, what to actually do with that technology, what kind of application to pursue, they need to have a connection to industry. That's really important because they need to do this iteratively with the industry to develop this technology further so that it can be brought to market as a product or a solution.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Ilona. That's really interesting to see, because in the previous discussion with the VC panel, this topic of team is one of the most important factors, especially when investing. Irit, in our calls beforehand, you mentioned that at Jeda or Weizmann, you have a really strict policy. For example, that scientists should not be heavily involved in the startup formation. How does it usually look like? Could you explain it a little bit more?
It's just opposite to what Ilona discussed, which is extremely important. We think that the most important thing is to keep the flame of basic research, burning, because this is the place where innovation is born. Nevertheless, Ilona is very much right. The optimal solution is if the scientists will leave the lab and go and develop the company, some of which really have the desire, but from our experience in our institute, there are very few of these. So the question is how we actually resolve this dichotomy. And our idea is that the scientists will consult the companies at least once a week, and technology transfer is often made by Weizmann alumni, students that got out, or postdoctoral fellows that got out from the lab and they are looking for the next career pathway. Another solution that we are now rationalizing and planning for the future is to actually build our own accelerator for proto companies, not even companies, but pre-startup companies next door to us. So the IP will still be within our TTO in Jeda, when we can maturate it on industrial, platforms, raise the value, and only then transfer it if successful. So we are actually, as you said, Clara, we are very keen in maintaining science and our researchers on site. But part of BINA, the new department that we established, is also to engage Weizmann alumni to take potential projects stay within our TTA's boundaries and take the technologies to the next level, and only if they are interested and they are passionate for that, as Ilona so wisely put, previously.
I think it's really interesting and cool to see how we have different standpoints or approaches here, but like having the same goal at the end, but different ways on how to approach it. We have a couple of minutes left. I would like to let the audience know if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. And Ilona, I think you wanted to add something.
Yes, I wanted exactly to emphasize that I do agree with Irit that scientists who don't want to leave the lab should stay there and to do their research. And our method and our approach exactly is something that allows them to do that. They can be co-founders of startups. This is something that is different from your approach, yeah, but they're not taking business decisions. So entrepreneurs are taking sole responsibility for the business development, and scientists actually can continue their research. And I think this is the beauty of that, and that has really been proven over the course of the years of our existence. So I do agree with you about that.
And what is your experience, especially when researchers and professors and so on are still involved, like for consultancy or like more strategic levels? How much do they take any equity? Is it more a consulting basis? Like, how does it work? Could like you're nodding, Irit? Could you just briefly state on that?
I'm the admirer of transparency. Everything is transparent. We have our own rules. In the rules, if a scientist give a consultation or sign a consultation agreement, he is entitled for that much amount of equity per year for this service, and also for for salaries. This is not a problem. We sign an agreement. We renew it every year, and all the parties are aware of what he's going to consult, how many hours, and so forth.
And is there a threshold or is there a maximum?
We do have thresholds, right?
Okay. Ilona, any experience from your side on that?
Well, our model assumes that scientists do have equity in these startups that are being created based on their research. The only difference is that they are not taking business decision, but still they have an equity, and they can benefit from exit, and they also can benefit from developing their technology in a different field. As I have mentioned in the beginning, there might be very early stage technological pivot, yeah, and we had many examples for that. For instance, they had beautiful research results for one area, but there is no problem in that area that needs to be solved, yeah. But we are coming from the entrepreneurial side. There should be a problem that is tackled, and the research helps to tackle that problem. And sometimes they need to change a bit their technology in order to be able to solve certain market problems, and this is something that they continue dealing with, and based on that they can get another research advances, and they can get new papers and new grants and new patents in the future. So I think this also enables the development of the research.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and Irit, I'm wondering, in the hindsight, especially of the success of JEDA, for example, right now, in the hindsight, what have been the most tremendous implications or frameworks you have been implemented which really boosted your success? Is there anything where you've been saying, I'm so glad we took that strategy or we implemented that standard? What has it been?
Yeah, I just want to say that I didn't mention that the scientists can be compensated not only based on a consultancy agreement, but also the scientists, once we get revenues for any technology, it's split 60%, 40% for the scientists. So there are two sources of getting compensated. Regarding the successful strategy, I must say that every technology or every project has its own strategy. I mentioned 7 blockbusters, but this was like a commercialization about 15, 20 years ago. where the pharmaceutical industry worked intimately with academic platforms. This is not happening that often these days. So that model was when for example, the pharma and the scientist lab work together through sponsored research, mechanism involving frequent meetings, doing all round of validations, and practically develop the drug together up to the clinical studies. Where of course we cannot do here experiments in human subjects. So this was one mechanism. I think now the success will be strongly dependent on matching, the technology with the right strategy, and also stay tuned to the market. For example, today in YEDA, we are trying to ride, all these business fashions that now, for example, food tech, femtech, fintech, sustainability. So we try to actually allocate technologies where we, for example, can contribute to the new, I would say, engines that are developing outside. So no specific strategy, just be very alert and tuned to the changes of the outside.
Okay. Irit, Ilona, I say thank you very much for this really interesting discussion and sharing your input. I think as some key takeaways, we can definitely say that it's important to have tech transfer strategies based on the resources and the culture on the institute. So it's really important to look at your surroundings and what you can do, as we have seen here with these total different approaches, and that it's important to take into account the entrepreneurial concepts when spinning out, like conflict of interests, KPIs, like how to manage the procedures. And I think it was really interesting to spare and to share with you, and I'm very much looking forward to having you again soon. And have a nice afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.